Hello, everybody. It's so great to be here with Jennifer Smith, who just shared in the pre-show chat that she has a secret past as a fundraiser. So we're super thrilled now that you've gone on to lead a tech company that's actually pretty huge. It will be fascinating to hear about kind of your reflection of the differences and all of that. But welcome, Jennifer. If you'd like to introduce yourself, I'm sure you'll do a much better job than I ever could.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. So I'm Jennifer Smith. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Scribe. We are a software company based here in Silicon Valley, where I've lived for the last 10 years. And we make software that automatically captures and shares step-by-step documentation. So if you have a process in your company, everyone does, and you need to show it to someone, a coworker, a new colleague, a contractor you're onboarding, you hit the record button and you just do the process, and Scribe will automatically generate a step-by-step written guide with screenshots automatically for you in an average of 56 seconds total that you can then use to share with those folks. My background, I was a consultant for McKinsey for 7 years, working mostly in org and operations practices, which is just a fancy way of saying helping companies figure out how to be more efficient in what they do. And after that, I was in venture capital, investing and supporting in early stage software companies. And I spent a lot of my time there talking to buyers of enterprise software. So CIO, CTO, CDO type folks. I talked to over 1,500 of them and just tried to understand what are the problems you're trying to solve in your organization. And I kept hearing a lot around this idea of efficiency, process, organization. I have all of these people and I bought all of this software and we're trying to do all of this work and we're trying to do it better and more efficiently every year. And I have all of this knowledge and it's really valuable and it just lives in people's heads, right? And they show up every day and they're 9 to 5, they're doing their hardest, they're working their best, but all the knowledge is up here. And maybe they leave, right? Or they move to another department or something, and I've lost that knowledge. And so how do I continue to capture what is one of my company's most valuable assets, this institutional know-how? And so Scribe was an outgrowth of both what I had kind of seen at McKinsey and then also talking to all of these folks where, we have just all of these amazing knowledge workers who show up to work every day and are doing this incredible work. Everyone is trying their best. Everyone's trying to get better. And we're all kind of doing it independently. Like, think about it. We work together all the time when we're on Zoom and whatever. But then we go back to our computers and we individually do our processes. We use our CRMs. We individually use our finance apps, whatever they are. And there are like common great ways to use them. And so the idea behind Scribe, the idea I get really passionate about is what if we could all just document what we know how to do and share it with each other? And what if we could do it where it's really easy and automatic, where technology does the work for us?
It's so nerdy that I'm excited by that, but literally kind of for whatever it's worth, my endorsement of Scribe is purely a labor of love. I actually just responded to one of Jennifer's marketing emails because I was using the tool and I find it so important. Nonprofits have a perception issue around this, but also maybe an actual issue. And we're going to maybe learn a little bit more about Scribe, see how it can help. But there's something called the Edelman Trust Barometer. They measure trust in organizations. Nonprofits are, as they should be, kind of seen as being morally superior lots of the time, but lagging in effectiveness, efficiency, all of these things. And I think part of it is having these processes, everything you just said, Jennifer, turnover, people doing individual jobs out of coordination. I've heard that so many times in my career. I actually put a question on the screen and nobody's answering. So I think nobody has a favorite process. But we'd still love to hear from you.
Is probably their answer. That would probably be my answer, right? My favorite process, maybe this is just the way I'm wired, but I suspect a lot of other people who like process are, it's like that feeling when you check something off a checklist, and you get kind of the dopamine hit. Like, to me, that's what a great process is, where you say, okay, I have to do this work. I'm going to sit down, I'm just going to do it. And I'm going to do it beginning to end. And I know what I'm doing the entire time. And it's really easy. And I can just get through it. And when I'm done, I can be like, check, done. Great. I did that thing. Versus what many of us experience. I know I experience when you have to go do something, you're not quite sure how to do it. And you kind of get this feeling of dread. Oh, I'm going to put it off. I'm going to procrastinate it because I know it's going to take me twice as long as it should because I'm not entirely sure exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And I might have to go bug someone to show me how to do it. That's not a great feeling, right? And so we end up pushing a lot of that stuff off.
Thanks so much, Joey.
Oh, you and I are the same. Do you ever actually write down something on your checklist that you have already done just so you can check it off? It's maybe a different level.
Evil hack. This is an evil process hack.
How you get your extra dopamine hit.
That's so funny. And another one I have is where I may do things but intermittently. And I kind of know, so I'm the person doing them in the office, but it's what you say, right? Oh, I just don't want to, I need to like refigure this out. And this is where I found that Scribe was also super helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's such a disempowering feeling, right? When you go to in a process, ideally, there's like figuring out what the process is. That's the hard part, right? What am I trying to achieve? What do I actually have to go do? What does that look like? You do that once, right? Or maybe your colleagues do that once. And maybe you update it on an ongoing basis, right? But the hard part's really that first time. You've done the hard part. And then every time you go to do it again, or someone else goes to do it and they don't know that you already figured it out, you're reinventing the wheel. And that's just a really disempowering feeling. And I think that's why we all shy away from doing some processes sometimes, because you know it's going to take longer. You know it's going to feel worse. You know there isn't documentation, so you're going to have to kind of muddle through it and figure it out on your own. And I just love the feeling when you can say, I got to do something, and you sit down and you have exactly what you need. It takes the amount of time you thought it should take, maybe even less, and you just get through it and you're done.
Yeah. So this is starting to feel like emotional therapy through Scribe. But another one is where like you're managing a team and maybe you have an idea of the end product or even the process because you've done it, you're a practitioner, you were promoted, and you have to have other people do it. And then suddenly it's not working because you haven't documented it. You think it's obvious. And some people will say, okay, I'll do it. And that just kind of ends, it's the everything work is supposed to be, right? Feel Scribe is also helpful here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the people who I think need to do this most are the people who say, I have to hire someone. I have to get a contractor or I have to hire someone because I'm so busy, but I don't have time to hire that person. Like, I don't have time to actually train them. And it's because you're still doing all the processes yourself, right? And so how can you take that knowledge out of your head and put it in a format that someone that you're just onboarding might be able to do? And if you put it in an easy way and the processes are already figured out, you could potentially get someone who's more junior or even kind of like a contractor, right? Someone who can kind of come in and really quickly just be given a set of things and be able to go through and execute on them. And you get that leverage much quicker than kind of like traditional sort of like, I hope you figure it out. We'll do a bunch of lengthy Zoom calls together. Or maybe if we're sitting next to each other, you can look over my shoulder, although that's less and less common these days.
Here's the swimming pool. Swim.
Yeah. I hope you learn by osmosis, right?
So I found this transformational. Have you found that your clients share the same feeling? I mean, do you have stats on, we went from taking 2 months to onboard people to a week, I mean, do you have stories like these? Because I think lots of nonprofits would be inspired. Yeah.
And we work with a lot of nonprofits too, actually. I think for a lot of the reasons that we talked about, Scribe is a common story where you're like, I have to do more with less.
Okay.
Right. So maybe I have a limit on the number of people that I can have, or we're just adding more and more work each year. And I got to figure out how I can be more efficient. So we've got a number of different statistics. We have one of our customers who rigorously tracks people's time down to 7-minute increments. They're not a law firm. They're actually like an operations company. And they found before Scribe showed up that their people were spending 9 to 20% of their time each week just looking for information on how to do their job or sharing info with other people. And this is kind of like a detailed bottoms up study. McKinsey has also done some top down studies that estimate it's about a day a week of people's time that they're spending, just exactly what you and I were talking about. How do I do this thing again? Trying to figure it out, asking someone else how to to show them how to do it. And they then said, well, how can we reduce this time with Scribe? And they found they reduced it by over 2/3. So that's like a day, half a day a week or more of employee time that they got back. And that meant that they were able to do a number of things. One is just kind of more with less because they were operating in a pretty constrained environment. The other is their business is pretty cyclical. And so what they had to do was staff to the highest needs at the peak, right? In each different department. What they're able to do now is move people between departments when one department is slammed. They say, hey, you guys are not so busy over here. Can you come help them out for a few days? And here are all the scribes we can hand to you so you know what to do. And so you can dynamically move people around without having to spend a lot of time training them, right? You can spend a day to say, here's the orientation. Here's what we do in this department. Here's what's going on. If you need information, here's where all of this lives. If you have any follow-up questions, here's where you can find us. That's huge. So it's meant that they've been able to, to be able to do more with less, essentially. And the interesting thing is we didn't track this, but when I talked to kind of people on the ground, they were like, we also found like just the KPIs for our team have improved. Because now, even though I'm a person who's been doing this for 10 years, some of these processes are complicated. I do them once a quarter or something, right? I don't fully remember it. And so now even I, as a veteran, will just like pull up the documentation and I just follow along and I get it done and I know it's good and I can move on and I'm happier as a result. And so they saw like employee experience, not surprisingly, also increase because employees were like, okay, I had the answers I need to do my job. I could do that thing. I checked it off my list. I got the dopamine hit. I moved on to, often what is the core of what you're hired for. And sometimes it's not, these other processes and explaining things to people. Right.
Totally.
We've seen that kind of show up time and time again, whether companies have tracked adherence to process. That's more important in some industries than others, but especially ones where there's any kind of compliance or anything, right? They've seen adherence to processes go from 70 to 95%, where people are like actually doing things the way that they were meant to do once you have documentation. We've onboarding reduce, like the amount of time it takes to onboard someone. That's pretty context dependent, but we've seen it go from everywhere from like 6 weeks to 2 weeks.
Wow.
So yeah, it depends on sort of the role, right? But the nice thing about these is like, it's a lot of ants. If you have good documentation, if people know what they need to do when they sit down their computer and they do their work, they'll do a better job and they'll be happier and they'll learn faster and they'll bother your people less and the process will get done correctly. There's sort of like a number of things and they're not trade-offs. They all kind of reinforce.
I'm with you, yeah. Let me maybe translate this and highlight some of the comments from our community here. But in the nonprofit world, what I found was it liberated my ability to think of what was moving the KPIs forward versus being stuck in the busy work. And maybe that's the relationship that explains some of that. Onboarding, being able to hire contractors or more junior positions. You can't fill that role at the director of development level. What if you could fill it at the associate the director, because you have everything documented and things are it's not like somebody who needs to reinvent the whole wheel. Think of, this is kind of a joke. If you could just tell the marketing department, hey guys, it's December, come over to development and help us out a little bit this month. Development and fundraising have a kind of traditional feud, Jennifer. So, wouldn't that be quite something? Lori says, and maybe Jennifer, your input here would be interesting. We have struggled to train our volunteers and keep them empowered and engaged. Do you think how-tos via Scribe or your product could help with this?
Yeah, absolutely. So to keep someone empowered, engaged, especially when you're bringing someone on new, whether they're a volunteer, employee, contractor, et cetera, I say you always have to ground them, and in this order: the why, the who, and the how for anyone to do a job, right? The why is like, why does this matter? Why is this work important, right? And so presumably you've already done this when you first had a conversation with that volunteer. Like, why are they even volunteering? It's probably because they love the mission of what your organization is doing. That's what keeps them fired up. That's why they show to work. And then they get bogged down by like the actual, like, how do I do that work, right? And so if you ground them in the why, the who is, who are we doing this for and who are we doing this with, right? So who are we serving? That comes to the why again. And then who are the other people in the company who you need to know to also get this work done with, right? Sort of your colleagues, the resources, the support. If you do recruiting really well, people should know those answers within, through the recruiting process and then the first couple days of kind of joining your company, right? The how is the part people usually drop the most because they sort of say, okay, great, here's your laptop. You know what you're doing here, go. And this is where you kind of lose people because they show up really fired up, very excited and engaged. They love your mission. They love their coworkers or their fellow volunteers. It's all wonderful. And then they're like, but wait, how do I do this stuff again? And then they try to find it. And it's that feeling we were talking about before where they're not quite sure what to do. And people shy away from things they don't know how to do. It's human psychology. You'll literally kind of disengage and turn away because we don't want to think about ourselves as being incapable or like being frustrated doing something. And so this is where if you can get them at the moment, they're fired up, they're excited, and you say, great, here are all the resources you need to be able to do this work we're asking you to do. Here's what it looks like. I'm going to give you a purview of it now, but you should also know it's available to you in the moment, in the time that you're going to go do that work. Because the other mistake people will make is they'll do these really lengthy trainings. I mean, I'll tell you, as a consultant, I'd go in and people would show me these thick binders. I assume now it's online. This was a while ago. I'm kind of old. These thick binders. And they'd be like, this is everything I was trained to do. And I had to memorize this. I went through a 2-week training session. I had to memorize everything here. And then they get to their desk and they forget. And they just do it a different way. I would watch them. I'd be like, you're not doing what's in the binder. And they're like, oh, yeah, I found my own way. Right. But now imagine you could say to that person, I'm going to show you what you need to know at a high level. And then when you go to do that work, that documentation will be there. It'll actually be there. You'll be able to find it in the moment, in the place you're doing work. And so you'll have this reference. And that keeps people engaged. As long as you keep reinforcing the why and the who, if you solve the how for them, then they're connected to the mission of what you're trying to do. And they feel like they're contributing to it. And it's easy for them to contribute because they know what to do. And that's a really empowering feeling. And people love feeling like they're contributing. Like I believe that at core of people they're volunteering because they want to make a difference. You just got to make it really easy for them, almost path of least resistance for them to be able to do it.
Awesome. Liz also, she's not, her little image is not showing up when I put her on the screen, but Liz had some great comments earlier. Liz, if you have any thoughts, it sounds like you're pretty experienced and already drank the Kool-Aid here. We'd love to hear from you. I've put up your URL, Jennifer, on this screen. I'm kind of like the show, not tell frame of mind. I have a Scribe that I made with recently, but if you have materials, I think you're kind of the expert in the room, but we can go in both directions. Totally up to you.
Why don't you show something you created?
Okay. I never thought I'd get to do this with the CEO of a tech company. I'm so excited.
I'm excited to see it. I love seeing what people come up with. They're so creative.
Okay, so this is super nerdy. Can people see the screen?
I can, yes.
Okay, so I'm doing this thing where I go into nonprofits and I help them build a donor welcome series, which is kind of a simple concept. So I think it's achievable for most every nonprofit out there, but it has lots of steps and people where they get stuck, especially when I'm having the conversation at first, right? Because afterwards I go in and I do it and we have our scribes internally for our team, but they get stuck in, okay, this all sounds like a good concept, but I can't really see it in my mind's eye. And I created this Scribe, so it kind of highlights the different ways you can use these things. But you can have description here. It says the seconds, your paid version, and I'm telling you as if you didn't know, but your paid version lets you do kind of a full screen recording, and it just goes step by step, and it shows people what this thing actually works like. And what I found was that it gives them it's a totally different conversation. It's like, now I can actually see it. I understood it before you told me, but now I can see it. So these are the steps. This is what an automation looks like, on the back end that connects with their specific CRM. So, this is a very short one, but this is why I found it helpful. Do you find people use it this way?
Yeah, I love this. This is a great example. And the thing for folks who are not familiar with this, and this is the reason people don't do documentation. You have hundreds or thousands or processes in your company. And my bet is 0.01% or less are actually documented at this level of detail, right? And the reason why is if you look at this, you'll think, wow, you spent so much time putting this together. This looks so wonderful and comprehensive and detailed. That's usually the reaction people have when they see these. And just to be clear, like this probably took you 2 minutes. I see the recording took you 56 seconds and noted there. And you probably went in and just edited a couple of the titles and things like that. But it's automatically generated. And that's really important because if you're trying to tell the story of like do more with less, what's one of the reasons people don't do documentation? Because it takes a bunch of time. Like you got to sit down, usually at the end of your day, you've done all of your work, and you sit down and you're like, do I go and have dinner with my family or do I write documentation? We think we know what most people are going to choose, right? And so like a big part of me as a technologist thinking about this was, well, technology should solve this for you. Like, remember, there's the hard part, which is actually figuring out what that process is and why it's valuable. Like you did real hard work. That was like really valuable knowledge work you did and figuring that stuff out. Sitting there and typing it up and writing it out is not that valuable knowledge work, right? It's not worth you missing hours of dinner with your family to put that together. But technology can solve that. Technology can watch you do what you do and automatically create that documentation for you. And so I think that like reducing friction point becomes really easy because we could sit here all day and talk about the benefits of documentation and everyone would agree. Everyone knows it's like eating spinach, everyone's like, yeah, I feel like I should do it. I get it. I know why it's good for me. I know why it's good for my company. But oh gosh, if it's a choice between doing this or documentation, I'm pretty much always going to do this. And so let's use technology. So it's not a choice anymore. It's when you go to do that process, next time you go to do the thing you were going to do anyways, just hit the record button and now you'll automatically get documentation. And maybe you don't even know who's going to use it yet, but boom, you've got it. And next time someone in your company has that question, it now exists and they're not going to bother you. You're not going to get that ping. Hey, do you have 10 minutes to quickly show me, how to do this thing, right? They'll be able to kind of self-serve. And that's a great experience for everyone.
Absolutely. So thanks, Jennifer, for creating this. Our little community is pretty lean too. And I feel like it's letting us dream about growth that just wouldn't be possible. Because exactly what you said, right? I'd rather be putting on an event, speaking with a nonprofit than maybe documenting things. And anyhow, if I did it, it would be much uglier, than what comes out here. Lori, okay. Lori has a trick question. Do you have a Scribe about how to use Scribe or get started with Scribe?
We do. We have an entire help center that will show you how to do it. But I'll tell you the easiest way. You could just go to scribehow.com and click that sign up button. The basic version is actually pretty generous. It's entirely free. It's free for you and your team. So really you should start there. We clock this. It takes 4 minutes from the moment you land on scribehow.com to the moment that you have created and shared a scribe that looks like what you just showed us. So it's really designed to be super, super easy for people who are very busy, not another thing that you have to learn and kind of add to your day, but something you can figure out yourself. So I encourage you, like if you have to explain anything to anyone, if you're onboarding anyone new, you got to show your volunteers things. Go to scribehow.com. Again, there's a pretty generous free version that I would bet many people on this call could use for a long time and get a lot of value from.
Awesome. Elijah from TechSoup. Call out to TechSoup, fantastic organization. He'd like to connect with you. So here we are on DPP Office Hours, connecting two great organizations.
Elijah, send me a note or I'll try to find you after.
Awesome. Allie, a great donor participation project community member. She's asking about whether Scribe can be used for things that are offline. I think that's, because of course it's a great recorder for what you're doing online. Can you have steps that are elsewhere?
Yeah. So Scribe is great for digital processes because we're watching what you're doing on a computer. We've actually just launched a mobile beta, so we can do it on your mobile phone too. But it is anything you do on a screen. If you're doing a process that's 10 steps and most of it is a screen, but step 5 is pick up the phone and call Allie and ask her XYZ, you can certainly add a step in the Scribe that says that. You can sort of manually adjust it and edit it. If your entire process is like, how do you make a cup of coffee for someone, then a Scribe is not going to work for that because it's not. You technically could use Scribe to write it out. You're welcome to, but that's not what it's designed for. We do have a lot of people who will create documentation, on a desktop, on a computer, laptop, et cetera. And then they have big field operations teams. So, work with a big coffee chain, for example. And so, to go back to my barista example, there's a bunch of questions that you might have in the store about how to do something, not making a coffee, but let's say like using the computer, right? Or some other process. And they'll send scribes, and people can view scribes on their mobile phone. So if you've got a field that's maybe out, out in the field meeting with donors, whatever, and they need to access scribes, certainly they can do that. But we're only focused on those types of things that you'll do on your computer, because those are the things that are easy for us to be able to automatically document. So technology hasn't advanced yet to watch you make a cup of coffee and automatically write step-by-step documentation on how to make that great cup of coffee.
I'm sure that's on the roadmap for you all. Justin, so let's see, Justin, I haven't read your question. I also love that you can put that extra minute in at the end to add context to the steps. It's very customizable, right? Adding the why and letting the tech handle the how.
Yeah, exactly. The best kind of scribes from a user perspective are ones where people have put a good title. And actually, like Snake Pete, we're about to add auto titles, where AI will look at your scribe and automatically put in a title, but you can still title it anything that you'd like. And maybe adding some kind of description. There's also functionality in Scribe called Pages, where you can put together collections of scribes and add more context. So let's say it's the new hire onboarding pack. Here's the new hire onboarding pack, right? And that's the title of your scribe. And then it's a whole bunch of context. Hey, there's a number of things you'll need to know as you're getting started. We're so glad you're here. Thank you for volunteering with us. Here are the 5 things we're going to find you're going to reference most. And, and you can embed the scribes in there and kind of build it out. And just, that extra 30 seconds it takes to type out that context is helpful for that person knowing it on the other side. But even if you're lazy and you don't want to take any extra time to put any of that stuff in, it's still all the info someone needs to do that job is automatically in there. Like, people can figure it out. That's sort of the great thing. Like, humans know step-by-step guides very intuitively. And if you've got some screenshots in there, like, even if they don't speak English, they can figure whatever language you've written your scribe in, like, they can still figure out what's going on, right? It's pretty foolproof.
Yeah, amazing. Lori, I'm not sure I understand Lori's question, but she's already recording with Scribe. Maybe she's doing a Scribe about how to tune into DPP office hours, wink, wink. But how can we get this in the classroom? I don't know, but maybe educational uses. Are teachers using Scribe to give instruction?
Yeah, teachers in a lot of school districts, actually. So at the administrator level too, have to do documentation of like training new teachers, administrators. We do see teachers sometimes having to explain to students or parents how to use software. It was particularly prominent at the beginning of the pandemic, when everyone went remote all of a sudden, and you had all of these parents and students trying to figure out how to log onto the online portal and do all these sorts of things. And so that was a really easy way to share with really anyone who needed to figure out how to use any kind of software. So long answer to yes, education's a really common use case.
Awesome. Tell us this stat that I know is not yours, but this thing where if you improve 1% every day, you end up in a, what's that?
We focus so much on these big step change, big overnight. I won the lottery. Like, we closed this big donor, these sort of big things, because they make for really fun story. I lost all this weight immediately, right? There are all these like TV shows around that. Like, we love all of sort of the instant, really big step change, but compounding is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. It's actually quite simple math. And if I said to you, hey, what if you just get 1% better every day? You're like, well, that doesn't sound like a lot. Like, I think I can do 1% more every day. You do 1% every day for a year, you'll be 37 times better than at the start of that year.
Wow.
And that's the power of compounding. That's just math. And so I think a great way, especially if you're thinking about New Year's resolutions or what you're trying to do this year and setting goals for the year, is like, it's great to say we're going to shoot for that sort of big change. but you'll get bigger results actually, most likely, if you say, I'm just going to get a little bit better every single day. And so what does that look like, for you? What does a little bit better look like? In a weightlifting analogy, it would mean you just put on a tiny bit more weight every single day and you just keep showing up and doing it. Right. And in a process world, it means I'm just going to get a little bit better about documenting my processes and making sure people know where to go when they have questions to do it. And so we're going to get a little more streamlined every single day and all of us doing this the correct way.
That's amazing. It's same thing happens, like you said, those big donors, that's great. In a way, I find that you can hide lots of bad things underneath those huge kind of bumps, right? So, yes, you close that donor, but your back office is a mess. Donor processing is not working. You're not thanking people well, which means you're losing donors. And all of those things are process oriented, right? And so I'd love to hear from folks what you document, what you'd like to document. Just kind of think of how you'd apply this in recruiting. Jennifer covered some very specific use cases, which I think lots of nonprofits could use, especially now that the job market is so tight. For finding nonprofit fundraiser expertise out there. Let me see. We already have an answer. This is great. Liz, we document processes and make sure to include the why, who is the backup, key definitions, and we make a point of reviewing the processes at a minimum annually. Jennifer, that's a really good observation. So you do these scribes. Do you recommend that people go back to them regularly? How does upkeep of this work, or just make a new one?
Yeah, it's a really important question because if you think about where documentation today falls down, it's one, I got to do it out of the goodness of my heart at the end of the day instead of having dinner with my family. And it takes me 45 minutes. I'm copy pasting screenshots in, right? It's not fun work. And then I put it in a wiki or a Google Drive or wherever it's and then I hope people look at it and I forget about it and it goes stale. And then definitely people don't look at it because it's stale and then it's incorrect. And it's this downward spiral, right? It's this negative feedback where you just kind of forget about it. And so a big part of this is how do we reduce that friction? So you're not copy pasting screenshots. It's just automatically created for you. And how do we also give you positive feedback, turn this into a positive spiral? And so there's a bunch of things that we've thought about in product that you can kind of mimic, which is, you get reactions when someone views your scribe. They can tell you what they thought about it. You know that they viewed it. You know it's getting viewed a lot. There's a way for them to mark and comment, hey, actually, I think step 5 has changed since you last recorded this. Can you please update this? And so it becomes a much more kind of living, breathing, ongoing part of the way that we work rather than this like one-off exercise someone did off the goodness of their heart and then they got to take another chunk of time and update it. And by the way, updating it now is step 5 has changed. Okay, great. You just hit the record button on step 5. You do the new step 5. It's slotted in and it's done. You're not having to like sit there and redo the whole thing. Or if you do videos, having to like re-record the whole video over and over again. Right. And so there's all these things like, how do you just make this part of the way that you work? How do you put the spinach in your meal rather than having it be like the thing that you like eat for dessert later to force yourself, right? It's like, how do you put it just within the flow of what you're doing?
Oh my goodness. The new spinach for fundraisers processes. This is great. This could be the motto of our organization. Liz has a great suggestion here. She says, we use the process as part of the training, and that helps identify where there are gaps. So they actually go through it maybe when they go once at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And you have a way, it also makes people feel more included, right? If you're being trained and you're going through and you're like, oh, I did this and this doesn't seem right. And you have a way to sort of raise your hand and be like, oh, no, something's changed. I'll update the process, or I'm going to flag it to someone who updates the process for us. But it makes it like more of a two-way conversation versus just a like, here you go off in the corner and memorize this.
Absolutely beautiful. Well, I hope we got some people excited today, Jennifer. I know I certainly was. Where should people go to learn more about you? See examples, your help center? I imagine it's your website.
Yeah, go to scribehow.com, SCRIBEHOW.com, show how, scribe how. And you can, again, click that sign up button. It takes 4 minutes, really easy, free. If you do find that you need one of the paid versions, we've got nonprofit discounts. So just shoot a note to our support center and we can get you set up with a nonprofit discount. And that's probably the best way. There's examples in the gallery and other places in our help center that can show you like what you created and just showed with everyone else. But honestly, the easiest thing is to just try it out yourself. Like think of what's a process we do here. How do I add a new donor into our CRM? I don't know. Just download the Scribe extension, hit the record button, and add your donor into your CRM. And when you're done, you hit stop record, and you'll see what the Scribe output is. If you have concerns around PII or sensitive information, that would be a reason to want to go to one of the nonprofit discounted paid plans. So if that's a concern at all, just drop us a note and we can explain more information to you. I don't want anyone to be concerned about that because there's a ton of stuff that we do there. But if you don't need that, don't worry about it.
Okay, wonderful. Lori has even more use cases, explaining her team or people that she serves, etc., how to fix things, like tech support type things. And we talked about the downstream benefits of it. You'll be happier. You'll have better dinners with your family. You'll have more time to think about what actually moves the needle. You'll be able to train people quicker and onboard them quicker, maybe even find people where you couldn't before because you needed like a lot of expertise. And you can be more flexible now. I find this to be super powerful. I'm kind of nerding out, Jennifer. Thanks so much. Yeah. I'm going to share the link to our community for folks who are here, who are new to the group. If you'd like to join Donor Participation Project, it's free. We meet every month, plus almost weekly here on LinkedIn. And we'd love to have you. Thanks a whole lot, really, Jennifer. This was mind-blowing.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you inviting me into your community. I love what you're doing and love being able to come here and share my love of documentation, which maybe after this, there'll be a few converts once you realize it's actually pretty easy. It makes your life easier.
Awesome. If anybody does check it out and likes what they see or just has any thought, put it here in the comment stream. This will be live. You'll be able to see this recording later on. About 2,000 to 3,000 more people are going to see this after we're live. So we'd love to still hear from you. As you experiment. We had Liz there, or Lori, I think, who's actually recording a Scribe live right now. So that would be very exciting. We have one final comment, maybe before we. Oh, okay. The end of the show today blows my mind. Lori, thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Lori.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Take care. Thanks, everyone.